All right. There is the last video of our onboarding. We will be installing VS Code. Good morning, everybody. I'm Julian from Hyperion Dev. I'm working here with my colleagues, mostly in the software engineering stream. And throughout these videos, we'll be showing you how to install a couple of softwares. The last one we will be installing will be VS Code. And as I mentioned, VS Code is almost like Microsoft Word for developers that will allow you to write code not only for Python, but for multiple languages that VS Code understands. But then in this instance, we'll use VS Code mostly for Python. And for those who are doing web development and other things, they will also be using VS Code. So to do that, as usual, we'll go to our repository. And in this repository, we again go to the starter pack. That's where you would see everything. And in the starter pack, we have the installation of VS Code, right? So, and in here, we have our get started. And we will be focusing on the Windows part of this documentation as we are using Windows. So because regardless even on the system we're using, then we just need to go to the download part, to the download page, sorry, of VS Code. So because now we're on the download page, you can either go through this link here, right? Because the link is available, or you can also go to Google or Bing or anything, and then you basically say download VS Code. And you will be have the first link is definitely the right one. It may look different, but in this instance, you're looking for Windows. And I'm currently running Windows 11, and VS Code will just be installed amongst the others, and we will just wait for that one to finish. So VS Code, while it's downloading, VS Code is what we call an IDE, Integrated Development Environment, and it basically allows you to bring a whole lot of software together. Remember, we were having Git installed, and here after that, we had Python installed. You would see that VS Code will basically bring all of those softwares together into a single environment for you only to focus on VS Code rather than dealing individually with Python, dealing individually with GitHub or any other softwares that will deal with, for example, SQL. But again, you'll be part of the bootcamp. All right, I can see that VS Code has been downloaded. Now we can open the file, or we can basically go where it has been downloaded. Then I double click on that, and then I accept. I go next, and yeah, the file. Usually everything is standard. You don't even need to touch anything else. I click on next, 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 and preparing for install. The installation will go good, and let's just be patient on that and see. There we go. We are done with VS Code. And let me close this window at the back here, and let's click on Finish. That will open VS Code, and we have VS Code open. So as a software engineer, this is the page that you will eventually see very often. And let's jump into that very quickly. So let me close that. We won't go into the Windows subsystem for Linux. We won't do that now, but let's just explore what we have here. So you will be welcomed with a theme to choose. I prefer the dark theme, and I'm fine with it. And on the left-hand side, you have a couple of icons here. You have the Explorer icons that will tell you which folder you currently opened to interact with the different files in there. You have the search icon that will allow you to search within a single file or a set of files. You have the version control icon, which is linked to Git that we recently installed. We have the debug control or icon that will allow you to go and check the errors in the code when you do what we call debugging, which also is part of the bootcamp. And then you have this particular important part. This is the extension. An extension, it's a little program within VS Code that does what the name basically says, it extends the functionalities of VS Code. Remember, VS Code is just an enhanced version of Microsoft Word. So to make it better, because we're using Python, then I'll install the extension Python, which will also install PyLens and many other extensions that will be important for you, right? So while it's being installed, then we will go through our first test. We will now run a Python file here in VS Code as opposed to running it in the terminal, right? So now let's do that. Now we go to the file is being installed. Now we go to the Explorer, right? We are here on the Explorer. We can either open a folder, right? We can open the document folder and then we select that folder, or we can just leave it as is, right? Yes, we'll trust whatever is in there. That's perfect. So what we do, we are now in the documents folder. Matter of fact, let's do something more practical here. So we go to File Explorer, we go to Documents, and in Documents, I will create a new folder, right? In Document, I'll create a new folder, and then I'll call it Tests. Yes, a folder called Test has been created, and I've closed that folder. Now I go back again to File, and then I say Open a folder. I go to Documents, and then I go to Test. Test is an empty folder, and you would see on the left-hand side, here that you have entirely nothing, right? You have nothing there, and that's very good. Perfect. So now that's perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. Let me just get rid of this. All right. Okay. So now we create a new file. Okay. So the first thing you would need to do, regardless of the software that you are using, you need to create a file. Now let's create a file. And in this file, what I'll do the exact same thing I've done in the terminal here, right here. And then I'll just say print hello world. Hello world. And what I do, I can press Control S to save, or I can just save the file. And the file will be saved in that folder called test. And then I can call it as well test Python. And you can call that file anything you want, but then there's this thing called the extension, right? You need to add that .py at the end so that it understands that it's a Python file. Otherwise, it won't work. So I need to put .py here to make sure that it understands that it's a Python file, and I save it. You would see the colors will change to recognize that we are running with Python. Let me make it slightly bigger. And you will also have to pick up here at the bottom that the language is also selected. Python is selected out of multiple other programming languages. You have the likes of your Java, your C++, your Golang, a lot of programming languages are taken care of. But I wouldn't want to figure that one out. I just want it to be auto selected. Okay, now the file is saved. And then now let's test that everything is running. You have two ways of doing that. You either go to, because I made it slightly bigger, but let's make it smaller so that you see. So you have this run here that allows you to run without debugging. This is the most commonly used command here, run without debugging. You will run with debugging when your code base starts to become bigger. So you want to start to run without debugging, or you can basically click on this button here and you would see a new tab that will come up here, and it will basically show you this hello world. So let's press on play, and then you would see hello world is well presented to you. And that's exactly that. So if we go back to basically the starter pack on Python, you would see that we run the executable file, and then we basically make it run. And that's basically it. So on this one, this is the end of our onboarding video about all of these softwares that we have. So to recap, we were able to to download Git, install Git, and play around with it just a little bit. We were able to download Python, play around with Python just a little bit to make sure that it works. And lastly, we were able to download VS Code and install VS Code and make sure that we are able to do also a lot more things with it. And here we'll say, this is the end. And I'll run this file, and this is the end. So on behalf of my colleagues and Hyperion Dev, I wish you luck into the whole bootcamp. Please, if you have a problem, let us know. We will be there to help. And then I'll also do a little video on how to navigate through the bootcamp GitHub page. Good luck and see you soon. Bye.